You are at a gathering, maybe a party, maybe a family dinner, maybe just a group of friends you have known for years. Everyone around you is laughing, talking, apparently at ease. And you are there too, physically present, saying the right things, nodding at the right moments. But somewhere underneath all of that, there is this quiet, persistent feeling that you are watching the whole thing from behind glass. That everyone else received some kind of instruction manual for how to belong, and yours got lost somewhere along the way. If you know that feeling, you are not alone. And I do not mean that in the dismissive bumper sticker way. I mean it literally. This experience is far more common than most people realize, and it has a name, a psychological explanation, and a history that almost always begins much earlier than the moment you first noticed it. Today I want to show you why some people carry this feeling everywhere they go, into friendships, into relationships, into rooms full of people who genuinely like them, and still cannot shake the sense that they do not quite belong. Because once you understand where it comes from, the feeling stops being proof of something wrong with you, and that changes everything. The first thing I want to establish is this. The feeling of being an outsider is almost never actually about the room you are in. It is not about whether the people around you are welcoming enough, interesting enough, or similar enough to you. It is not because you were at the wrong party, or in the wrong city, or surrounded by the wrong people. The clearest evidence of this is what happens when people who carry this feeling finally find what they think they have been looking for. They find the group that shares their interests, the partner who seems to understand them, the community they have been searching for. And for a moment, sometimes a long moment, the feeling lifts. And then, quietly, it comes back. In the same room, with the same people, doing the same things, the outsider feeling travels with them because it was never really about the outside at all. Psychologists call this belonging uncertainty, a chronic, low-level doubt about whether you genuinely fit in any social environment, regardless of how welcoming that environment actually is. And what research consistently shows is that belonging uncertainty is not primarily a response to present circumstances. It is a lens through which present circumstances are interpreted. A lens that was ground into shape a long time ago. Let us go back, because for the vast majority of people who carry this feeling, its roots are in childhood, and specifically in something called childhood emotional neglect. Childhood emotional neglect does not necessarily mean abuse. It does not mean your parents were cruel or absent or obviously harmful. It can look like a perfectly functional home from the outside. What it means, at its core, is that your emotional experience as a child was consistently not seen, not responded to, not validated. You felt something, excitement, fear, sadness, confusion, and the adults around you either did not notice, or minimized it, or changed the subject, or simply did not have the capacity to meet you there. Over time, what a child learns from this is something devastating in its simplicity. They learn that their inner world, what they feel, what they need, what matters to them, does not fit. It is too much, or it is not the right kind, or it simply does not register as important to the people around them. And if the people who are supposed to know you best, who are supposed to love you most, cannot quite reach you, the logical conclusion a child draws is not that the adults are limited. The conclusion they draw is that something about them is fundamentally different, fundamentally separate. Outside. That conclusion, I do not quite fit, I am not quite like other people, there is something about me that does not connect, becomes wired into the nervous system. It becomes the default interpretation of every social situation that follows. Not a conscious belief, something deeper than that. A felt sense. A quiet hum in the background of every room you walk into. Here is the part that I think is most important to understand. Because once this pattern is established, it does not just sit there passively. It actively works to confirm itself. And this is where psychology gets genuinely fascinating. When we carry a core belief about ourselves, even a painful one, even one we consciously wish were not true, our brain treats it like a hypothesis it needs to protect. It filters incoming information to find evidence that confirms the belief and discounts or ignores evidence that contradicts it. This is called confirmation bias, and it operates on self-concept just as powerfully as it operates on political opinions or financial decisions. So the person who carries the outsider feeling walks into a room and their brain is already scanning, not for connection, but for confirmation. Someone does not smile at them immediately. Evidence. A conversation does not flow quite naturally for a moment. Evidence. Someone across the room laughs at something they did not catch. More evidence. Meanwhile, the genuine warmth that is also present in the room, the person who did make eye contact, the conversation that actually went well, these get processed as exceptions, as flukes, as things that do not really count. And there is something else that happens. People who feel like outsiders often behave in ways that, completely unconsciously, create the very distance they are afraid of. They hold back a little. They watch rather than participate. They do not share the thing they were about to share, because some part of them is waiting for it to land wrong. And people around them, picking up on that slight withdrawal, respond with slightly less warmth than they would otherwise, which the outsider's brain immediately registers as confirmation. You see, I knew I did not fit here. The pattern feeds itself. I want to say something here because I think it matters. The feeling of being an outsider is often confused with introversion, with social anxiety, or with simply being a private person. And while these things can overlap, they are not the same. An introvert needs solitude to recharge, but does not necessarily feel like they do not belong when they are with people. Someone with social anxiety fears judgment, but may still fundamentally believe they are capable of connection. The outsider feeling is something more specific than either of these. It is not the fear of being judged. It is the quiet, settled conviction that genuine belonging, the kind where you are fully known and fully accepted, is available to other people, but somehow not to you. And it is worth saying clearly, this conviction is wrong. Not in a motivational poster way, wrong in the precise sense that it is a conclusion drawn from incomplete and distorted data, by a child who did not have the cognitive tools to reach any other conclusion at the time. It felt true then. It does not mean it is true now. So what do you do with this? Because understanding where something comes from is not the same as being free of it. And I want to be honest with you. The outsider feeling, when it is deep and long-standing, does not disappear because you read an article about it or watch a video about it. It shifts through something slower and more deliberate than that. The first thing that actually helps is learning to distinguish between the feeling and the fact. When you walk into a room and the outsider feeling rises, which it will, the practice is to notice it without automatically treating it as information about reality. The feeling is real. What it is telling you about the room is not necessarily true. Those are two different things, and learning to hold them separately is the beginning of everything. The second thing is small, repeated acts of genuine disclosure. Not oversharing, not dumping your entire inner world on someone in the first conversation, but the deliberate, incremental practice of letting people see slightly more of you than feels comfortable. Because the outsider pattern is maintained by concealment, by the part of you that withholds to avoid rejection. And every time you share something real and it is received, even imperfectly, even just adequately, you give your nervous system a small piece of evidence that contradicts the old conclusion. It takes many of these moments, but they accumulate. And the third thing, and this is perhaps the most counterintuitive, is to stop trying so hard to feel like you belong, and start focusing instead on making the people around you feel like they belong. Because the outsider feeling turns your attention inward toward your own experience of the room. Shifting that attention outward, genuinely curiosity about the person in front of you, genuine interest in their experience, does two things at once. It breaks the self-monitoring loop that feeds the outsider feeling, and it creates the very connection you have been looking for, through the one door that actually opens it: presence. Here is what I want to leave you with. The feeling of being an outsider is one of the loneliest feelings a person can carry. Not because you are isolated, you might be surrounded by people, but because the loneliness is on the inside, invisible to everyone around you, in a room full of people who might genuinely want to know you if you let them.
That feeling was not born in you. It was learned. It was the only conclusion available to a younger version of you, working with the information and the emotional vocabulary they had at the time. It made sense then. It does not have to define now. You are not fundamentally different. You are not broken. You are not outside by nature. You are someone who learned very early to stand at the edge of the room, and who has the capacity now to choose to walk in. Leave a comment below. Have you ever felt this way? Like an outsider, even in rooms where you were welcome? I want to hear from you. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if this resonated, and I will see you in the next one.